Kinga.
And this is Martin. Welcome, welcome, welcome.
We're so excited to drink some beer.
Oh, I know. We've got some fun.
Sustainable beer.
Sustainable beer. Yes. So, Jim, tell us a little bit what we're doing here today.
Introduce yourself and tell us about your background, and also Valerie. Please as well introduce Valerie.
Sure. My name's Jim Erickson. I'm with Walter Station Brewery. I'm the owner. And what we've done is working with Scottsdale Water, we participated in a One Water Brewing Showcase, which was an opportunity to brew with recycled water, something that we don't normally have a chance to do. And then
it's totally sustainable.
It's totally sustainable. And we take the water that they provide to us. We come up with our own individual recipe, and not only us, but another 8 or 9 different breweries as well. And then we showcase those beers during Canal Convergence every year.
And you partner with Valerie Schneider. And tell us how this works.
Sure.
Valerie, introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Valerie Schneider, and I'm the Public Information Officer for the City of Scottsdale. So I work directly with the Water Division, and we are one of the very few facilities in the country. We're actually one of 3 and the only one in Arizona who is permitted to supply direct potable reuse water. So I can explain that later.
But where's that water reused from?
The City of Scottsdale.
Okay.
Yep.
So you're basically trying to reclaim water that wouldn't normally be reclaimed?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep, we take it directly from the city system.
Mm-hmm.
We process it, and then we actually ultra purify it through several other processes, and that's where we get this DPR water. So we are permitted to do that. We actually right now are only permitted by the state to do this for sampling. So we do a lot of tours at our water campus facility, which is world renowned.
Where is it?
State of the art. It's northern Scottsdale. It's right off the 101.
Mm-hmm.
But also we can do it. We can send this water to a beverage company to make a beverage.
And that's what's happening here.
That's how we do this. So this is a way for the City of Scottsdale to really educate the public in a fun and informative way.
This is such a big deal. What a great collaboration, and welcome to the show in the green room. We're so happy to have you here, right, Martin?
No, I'm so mad that we're having beer today. Just so
Can
mad.
we crack open a beer here?
Well, thank you.
Yeah, I'm parched. I'm feeling thirsty.
We are happy to be here. And
And our sound engineer does not work good unless he has some beer.
that we can accomplish.
Right, Colin?
Totally.
So
So are you
Valerie,
guys associated with like Walter Studios, the
The man, the legend.
Oh,
himself.
you are that guy.
Actually, 2-part question. I'll answer both of them as I pour here.
pass it down. Martin.
Yes, we are affiliated. That is our sister company, Walter Productions, who also owns Walter Studio and Walter Warehouse. That is my partner, Kirk Strawn.
Okay.
Is a very good and dear friend of mine, and we started Walter Station Brewery about 5 years ago.
Okay.
Cheers to 5 years of
Yes, cheers to
sustainable
that.
beer.
Poor Valerie.
I've got water.
Poor Valerie's.
What?
She's on
on the
duty
clock.
and she's being very professional.
Yeah, when Scottsdale looks at this, they can say, "Oh, she was not drinking on the job."
Okay, we understand that. Well,
Ooh, that's
maybe
good.
sometimes they. Oh wow,
That is really
that's
good.
fantastic. What do we call this?
The name of the beer is simply called Scott's Beer, just Scottsdale beer.
Mhm.
So we just shortened that up. And it's a beer that's what we call a smash beer. So SMASH is an acronym for single malt and single hop. So there's only
Single
one.
malt and single hop.
Yeah. So there's only one type of malt in this particular beer,
Mhm.
and there's only one type of hop in this particular beer. Now, oftentimes in an IPA or pale ale or other types of beers that you guys might be interested in or drink on a regular basis, not that you drink on a regular basis, but if you did, a lot of the beers that you would be drinking beers that have a variety of hops in them. There's a blend of hops in most beers. So for a beer to have only one malt and one hop, it's fairly unusual. But
And why is that? Because like in wines, you can have a blend, but people more tend toward a certain type of grape. What do you think's made that different?
If we were making a mass-produced,
Well, yeah, you've got to
macro
get
beer,
right.
where the flavor profile is very limited.
Mhm.
It's very narrow. And you don't need a lot of different types of grains to get to that flavor profile. It's just not necessary. When you're doing a more complex beer like craft beer can be, you're using a bunch of different types of grains because you're trying to build that flavor profile and create something that most people haven't experienced.
Well, what are the flavors I'm tasting here? Because I'm
So
like,
this
it's
is
a mouth explosion of just harmony.
well, thank you.
Right.
That's perfect. Kind of what we're going for.
It's
so
harmony.
absolutely.
That's what
Thank
we could
you.
call this. Could we call it harmony?
Absolutely.
You can.
For the duration of this show, for the duration of this show,
Wow.
this beer is now called Harmony.
We'll get you stickers and you can put them on all the 6-packs.
Yeah. What a great idea. So the grains in this are pretty simple. The grain in this is just a one very simple base grain that we use. If we were making a dark porter or a stout or something like that, we'd start with that base grain and then we'd add 10 to 20% of roasted grains or similar. If we were making
Now, if you
an
roasted the
amber-
grain, would it be the same grain, or would you do a different grain to roast it to get a different profile?
Good question.
Actually, really good question.
Really good question. See, he's in the wine business, so he knows his
So
stuff.
you
I'm
understand.
also fascinated how things
And
are
cannabis
made,
business.
Yeah.
especially beer and wine and whiskey, all that.
Well, you know, the grain comes from all over the United States, and
So it's ubiquitous.
It is. So it's everywhere. You're absolutely right. And we can take a basic 2-row malt, which is just an industry term, and a maltster, not a brewer, a maltster can go ahead and take that from the farmer, and they
Are you
can
saying maltster?
maltster.
Have you heard that word?
MALTST.
Okay, wait,
Maltster.
define that word, please. 'Cause I don't know.
It is maltster is it's a profession or a person or a company in this case that takes the grain from the farmer, then goes ahead and what they do is they steep it in hot water, and the attempt is to get it to germinate. But they only want it to germinate just the very beginning stages. We don't want the actual to sprout something really long, right? We don't want that. We just want that
and then
Like the
individual
babies?
kernel to crack open and a little tiny sprout to come out.
Like a matcha? Matcha's like the baby little leaves.
Yeah, not unlike that.
Okay.
So that's what they do. That's the base of making malt for beer. We don't just take grains out of the field, throw them in the beer, and expect the beer to come out, because they have to be modified to a certain degree. Otherwise, we can't get the sugars out of them with any efficiency. All right. Otherwise, we'd be spending days trying to make a beer versus hours.
Right.
So the maltster goes ahead and he does that process, and as soon as he gets that to sprout, the very moment, then he stops that process. He douses it with cold water, and then they take that and they dry it. And they dry it in tumblers, or old school. They used to, like, if you go to Germany and places like that, you'll go to these big malt floors, and they're a football field long, and they dump the grain out, and there's these guys just raking it with rakes, right? And they get it to about 4 to 6 inches thick, and the floor itself is heated, so it's helping to dry the grain. Remember, we don't want to do anything else to the grain other than just dry it. We don't want to cook it. So at that point, once it's dry, they can sell it to a brewer, and there's really nothing's been done with it other than crack it open to sort of help the brewer with what they're trying to achieve, which is extracting the sugar from the actual grain.
And I think in my day we called it the Swedish treatment, right? But it's reversed maybe, because you're supposed to go into the hot and then the cold, right?
Oh,
I love that.
okay.
Sorry.
Right. It's
I had
quite
to
all
work
right.
for that joke.
It's quite all right.
I loved it.
So-
Cheers. I love it. Okay, cheers. This
Cheers.
is delicious.
It is really good.
I'm sorry that you can't taste it. But
I
cheers.
already
am-
had it. I had it before because we did a judging competition.
There we go.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay. So how did we meet Valerie, and how did you collaborate with her water?
We were lucky enough a few years ago to participate in the very first One Water showcase that Scottsdale Water had done, and they were actively seeking breweries to get involved. And I heard about it actually late. I wasn't one of the first breweries to get involved, but as soon as I did, I raised my hand immediately, because we definitely want to be involved in that. And so when we heard that Scottsdale Water was doing that, we signed up immediately. And that meant all sorts of cool things were about to happen, because we got to tour the Scottsdale Water campus up in North Scottsdale, which, by the way, if you get the opportunity...
Can we do it?
Absolutely.
Valerie?
It is really cool.
All right, let's go.
All right.
Well, okay, cool.
This place is unbelievable. It's huge, first of all, and you would never even know it's there. It's so well blended into the...
Make us feel
the
like we were
background.
there. How was it so extraordinary?
Well, it's state of the art, and it's first of its kind. It was, I think.
Can you make us feel like we're there?
25
Like,
years ago?
describe it for
How
us.
long? 25 years ago?
I want to say 25 years ago.
Okay.
My dates aren't.
It's all
My
good.
dates are a little shady there, but so really, what we always do when we do a tour is we give a presentation first. We kind of deep dive into what we do there and what makes the Scottsdale Water Campus so unique. Especially as we go into our advanced water treatment facility. That's where we have our direct potable reuse water. And then we go, on the tour, we show them the reverse osmosis facility. We take them through kind of the heart of what we do and how we purify the water and what makes us.
How do you purify it? And what kind of water, is this like water that goes on a golf course, or is this what we're flushing in the toilets?
So what we're having right here, this is going through the system from, we're gonna put it into our mains, our water mains, so it goes to your tap, right? And then it goes down into the sewer. It comes into our advanced treatment facility. We treat that like we would any sewage water, first and foremost. So we do that, we treat it to A+ standards by the state, and then we can do a couple different things. We actually go a couple different processes beyond that, and that's what ultra purifies it. So we will do ozonation, membrane ultrafiltration, reverse osmosis, and ultraviolet photolysis. And it's really, think of reverse osmosis, that thing you have under your sink that purifies your water. This is on steroids, because we're doing millions of gallons a day. So right now what we will do with that water is we will either put it back into our aquifer as kind of a savings account. We will use this for sampling or for beers, or we also will send this to irrigation. So our golf courses are a partner with us, and they actually help to fund and really supply the money and the finances to help create the advanced water treatment facility and the advanced distribution system. So they then buy our water back, and because we can't put it directly into the system right now, it's not permitted by the state, we can reuse it in irrigation.
Now, would you see 10, 20 years from now, do you see Arizona having to do more and more of this type of thing, and then eventually that will have to go into the potable drinking water system?
For sure.
Yeah,
and probably within 5 years.
Oh, really?
Yeah, Scottsdale Water, we're really lucky because not only is our treatment facility, our sewage treatment facility right there at the water campus, but so is our water treatment facility. So really it's like a quarter of a mile away. We can take a pipe and when we're ready,
right over.
and put it directly back into our system. So we are already working with the state to get that next step permit.
And do you see, are other cities starting to follow suit?
Yes, there are definitely a lot of other cities who are interested in doing this. Lots of people have come to our water facility to kind of take a tour to see how we are doing it right now. So I think it's in the plans for a lot of cities who can afford it.
So somebody that's a water snob, would they say that the water that you are providing for this beer is like the highest quality?
It is. It's actually purer than bottled water.
Cheers.
Well, that's not hard to get.
Cheers. I have a sister that's such a water snob, and she's going to listen to the show, and I want to be able for her to hear that.
Yeah. So, I mean, people kind of are a little skittish sometimes when you say ultra purified recycled water, but really it is purer than bottled water. So
it's probably purer than most natural water. Certainly, what we pump out of the aquifer, I would imagine has, 700 parts per million of something in it.
Well, and we actually remineralize it before we give it back to samples, because you are used to having some type of minerals in your water.
Yes, I'm very familiar with what we call it hungry water, where it's so mineral lack that it'll actually start pulling and leaching minerals out of your pipes and things like that. We've seen that before.
It becomes corrosive.
Yes, absolutely.
What about chlorine? How much chlorine is in the water?
I don't know that off the top of my head. You'd have to ask my water
All right,
quality.
what's the next beer we're going to taste?
No,
I'm ready.
The chlorine is actually really a question, because we have at Walter Station Brewery, we have our own on-site water treatment, and that is consistent with most breweries. Most breweries would have that something. There are a bunch of breweries out there that just brew with the water that comes out of the tap, and I really like that in a way because it is true local beer. But there's a lot of things breweries do, like when they're trying to match up a profile. If I want to make a beer that's you would traditionally find in Ireland, well, I can look up the water profile in Ireland and find out, how many parts per million magnesium and how many parts, and so on and so forth.
Really?
And I can figure all that out. And I can chemically treat with those minerals my water, and I can create a water profile that will taste just like it's in Dublin.
Incredible.
So brewers do this
So
all the time
fascinating.
anyway. All the time anyway. Sometimes they just leave it completely alone, but it does mess with efficiencies a little bit. And so one of the reasons we do it is because we don't want to waste water. We want to treat it so there's less going down the drain. So the more that we can just add little minerals here and there to make the water more conducive to that style, what happens then is that we actually have a larger yield. So we have more beer created out of the same amount of water versus having some of it go down the drain. So it's really helpful to know that. And in terms of chlorine, there's no chlorine left in this water. When we get this water from
There's nothing in it.
from Scottsdale, we get an entire report. Okay, we have to sign for it. I mean, there's a chain of custody and everything that goes along with it. It's really cool. It's really cool, and it is so pure that we are adding minerals back to it to try to get to a specific water profile.
Right.
Because I know it's a big deal to not have chlorine in your water. And I know Chet, our co-host that's not here, we miss you, Chet. He's not here today because he's not feeling well. He won't drink any water that has any chlorine in it. And I know, I don't want to name out the ones he likes to drink, but that's why I asked you that question.
Yeah, and our water filtration system on site, which is a toy compared to what Scottsdale Water is doing. Ours is truly a toy. Once you see the campus, you'll know what I'm talking about. But ours is a toy. But the very first thing we do with ours is because we use a nanofiltration system. We don't use an RO. And what we do is the very first thing we do with the water is we run it through a pre-filter that takes out all the chlorine. And because the chlorine, to the point that you were making a second ago, the chlorine, we can't have chlorinated water going into those nanofiltration screens. It degrades them so fast that we have to replace them way too frequently. So we have to make sure that we take the chlorine out of the water that we make on site before we even run it through our nanofiltration.
Interesting. What about fluoride?
Not really a big component anymore, and there's not really much of that in any of the beer that we brew.
Well, this is delicious.
This is very good. What do you've got for us next?
What's our next taste? Because we have so many to taste, we have to hurry up.
We brought a
Colin,
plethora
cheers.
here.
Drink up.
Cheers. All right, we'll do this. Let's.
Sorry.
Your Facebook fans should see the cool,
Yes.
the cool cans.
Oh, for
Oh,
sure.
yeah.
That's really important what they look like.
Yeah, we call these crowlers. I used to go to a bar,
Crowlers.
brewery,
So
and
cool.
you'd bring a big glass jug, and they'd fill it up for you, and it was called a growler. Well, these days we have something called a crowler, which is 2 pints in aluminum, ultra portable, unbreakable, smaller carbon footprint, cubes out better in packaging. It's just better all the way.
And then
around.
can you bring these back and get them refilled?
No, these are one use only, but
But you can recycle.
but you can recycle
That's
them.
And
You
he fills
can
it up
recycle.
right at his brewery. It's so cool to see
We fill it
that.
right at the
I
bar.
love
Yeah,
that.
right.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Oh,
Yeah,
that's amazing.
I've seen that. Do you guys have your beer at the warehouse? Correct. There's like a
We do.
there's
On
a
Washington?
I think there's a cart or not a cart or
At
a trailer.
the Walter Warehouse
Yeah.
on 21st Avenue. Yes, we
I
have.
thought it was Washington.
There's two. There's Walter Warehouse and there's Walter Studios.
I've been to
Yeah.
several events at Walter's Warehouse,
Right.
and I've seen that there, and I've definitely had the beer. So this is fantastic.
Yep, you will find our beer there all the time. That
Mhm.
is our sister company, and of course, they're going to carry all of our
You've
beer.
got to hire his band to play at one of your events. Do
Love
you
it.
guys have food there?
We do. We have food at all 3 locations. So down at the brewery, of course, we have a kitchen there, and at Walter Studios at 7th Avenue and Roosevelt, there's a full kitchen there, and then there's a catering kitchen that we do for food and things at the warehouse.
His wife's part of the band. They really knock it out.
We have a lot of fun.
Yes.
So remind me where your beer garden is.
The brewery.
Yeah, the brewery.
The
Sorry,
brewery's
couldn't
down
think of the word.
It's 4056 East Washington, 41st
Oh, okay.
Street in
Yeah.
Washington. a block away from Gateway Community College, if you're familiar with that area.
Yes,
It's not
yes.
far from here. It's actually quite close to the
Yes.
studio. So yeah, we're right on the light rail line, just a block away from the airport light
Nice.
rail.
Nice.
So what's the second beer we're tasting?
The second beer I just cracked open here is called Baja Girl Blonde.
I love the names. Names are so important.
Yeah. So Baja Girl was named after
Here's Martin's.
my wife, who's not blonde.
Oh, did she like that? I don't know. That sounds
Well,
like a little bit of drama.
my wife was a co-owner in a company called Baja Motorsports, and so she had a specialty license plate that said Baja Girl,
Mm,
and
Got
so
Colin,
she was sort of known as, well, I don't know about known, but she liked that Baja Girl moniker, and so when I started brewing beer, I told her I would name one after her. So the first thing we picked was
Aw.
this, and that was the very first beer we ever brewed at the brewery as well.
How cute.
So it's obviously sustainable and
Oh, that's really good.
Yeah.
oh wow, that's very different.
That's so.
So this
it's
has
so beautiful and different, like he's saying.
You know, the
Very
interesting,
unique.
what you'll notice here is
Wow.
because these have sort of the same base building
Mhm.
blocks, but the smash beer, the single malt and single hop, whereas Baja Girl has multiple types of grains in it.
Mhm.
It's
So
way
there's-
more. It's tastes more rich. I don't know the terminology.
It's got more citrus.
Yes,
Definitely.
very creamy.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a little more creamy than the last
Mhm.
one.
More
And you're
A
getting
creamy.
little
that-
sweeter, but no
yeah.
sugar.
And that's coming
More
from the malt bill.
substance.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, do I have some good words?
Yeah.
Sure.
Fantastic.
Substance, creamy.
Keep
Look,
making up those
you're a
words,
critic.
Kinga.
You're already a critic.
That's right. Next up on Kinga's Critical Corner.
We should have had you as a beer judge for
There we
our-
go.
Oh, that would have
Next
been
time.
perfect.
for the One Water Brewing Showcase. We'll do it.
Mm.
Yeah.
It
We're
tastes
always-
like happiness.
There
And, no,
we
it
go.
does.
And
It's
sunshine.
creamy,
Why not?
substance. No, it's really, it's so flavorful. It's so balanced. It's
A lot
very
of people
balanced.
get a little bit of almost toastiness, almost bread out of this, and or cracker is somehow to people.
Interesting. Yeah,
sometimes
I
they
can
describe it
get
way.
that. That's not what it hit. How it hit
I
me
don't.
first, but
I don't
get it
taste any
now.
bread because I don't like
That's
bread.
the beauty of that's the beauty of beer and wine. Beer and wine. I mean, it's to anybody that might drink it. It might be a little bit different for each person that tastes it.
Well,
It
that's
is,
very
it is,
true.
it is.
And you know, for me, I don't drink that much beer. It's been several years since I've had a beer actually, and this
Really?
one's really good. Yeah,
Cheers.
beer.
need to go to
Man, you like
Cardinals
the typical beers that are in the stores. They don't make me feel good. Craft beers, where I know
Mhm.
the people who make them and they're not putting chemicals in them, I seem to do fine. But I think there's chemicals in the processed beers.
Would you say this is almost organic?
No, there's a very
Mm.
there's a very clear line of delineation for organic beers,
Mhm.
and in order to qualify for that, you have to go and do quite a bit of things, and we're not there yet. We're sustainable in ways that a lot of breweries do. We don't just the water is the biggest component because beer is 90+% water. It is by and large the biggest component that goes into a beer. It's our biggest ingredient, and therefore it's the most important. If there is such a thing as more important than the other, I guess it's the
So is the water almost organic because it's so purified?
I'm not sure.
Are there any chemicals
It
in the water?
would be beyond organic, right? Because organic is
I
a
was
list
gonna say.
of chemicals that are allowed. What it sounds like is that you guys are trying not to use any chemicals,
Right.
and so
Well, like
that
Sam
can
Pillsbury's always on this show. He's very frequent wine
guest.
guest that's always on here, and he always talks about how he's not certified organic, but he purposely makes sure he doesn't have any chemicals, but he doesn't go through the whole process of being certified organic.
Right.
Would you
Right.
say you're about the same?
I'd say we're about the same.
Yeah.
We go through the process of making sure that we strip out anything out of the water that we don't want. And that's when we're just dealing with our water, not even Scottsdale water. And then what we do is once we have that water, and the water we can make on site with my nanofiltration system is not as pure as what Scottsdale water provided to us for this particular beer that we
Mhm.
tried first of all.
Mm.
Much more pure, but I can get close. And
I love it.
I can get close with my nanofiltration system, and the good part about that is that a lot of like under-synced RO systems that you have in your homes are not terribly efficient. They're good at what they do, but they're not efficient in such a way that you might use 3 gallons of water to make 1 clean gallon of water.
Right.
Interesting.
So you're pumping out 4, and you're only collecting 1.
Really?
As it goes through all those membranes and screens and things like
That's
that.
crazy, really?
Yes.
Now it goes back into the system, and then ultimately it gets used and reused again. And so it's not that it's a bad thing to be using those types of filters. But what I can do with nanofiltration is I can dial up and down as I'm making water. And again, making water is sort of a weird term because people think of it as they don't often understand that. I'm not making water. I'm not the guy on Mars and Matt Damon.
Valerie's making water.
Valerie's making water.
But we
She's
make that
making water.
we make that in such a way so that then all we're left with is something super pure, and then we can go ahead and add, whatever minerals we want back in the water to make sure it's true to style, and that we're also getting a high efficiency and a high yield out of our beers. So all that comes into play, and that's just water. I mean, everything these days in terms of beer is all going upstream, and it's being demanded by the brewers, which is putting pressure on the suppliers, which is suppliers are then putting pressure on the growers, right? Or even in this case, the maltsters, and the maltsters are putting pressure on the growers. It's very uphill. So in 20 years ago, nobody was thinking about some farmer out in the field driving his tractor up and down, back and forth, making, or planting all this stuff. But now we do. We think about it now because we're realizing that everything associated with the beer that's going in here has an element attached to it that has a level of carbon footprint, right? So the gas of the diesel and the tractor,
We want to make it more eco-friendly.
We can go deep down that rabbit hole, and we simply just don't have time for that today. But
Another show.
Grains farmers now are taking special care. Maltsters are doing the same thing to make sure that we're using less and less resources as much as we possibly can and still create a good quality product. Hops in this particular beer, the first one we tried, which was the One Water Brewing showcase beer. Yeah, the Scots beer that we made.
Is it this one?
We made this with a cryo hop. And so hops come off of a vine, and they look like little cones, and they provide flavor and aroma and bitterness. And we'll often put a whole bunch of different types of hops in beers to try to get a complex flavor. But in this particular beer, because it's a smash, we only used one kind. And now into that, we used a cryo hop, which is a special type of hop that's been treated in such a way that it's more concentrated.
Cryo hop.
Cryo hop.
Okay.
Have you heard of that before?
I have not.
Have not.
So now what we can do is
Now
we can get from hop growers and hop unions, those guys can now provide us with a hop that's higher concentrated, which means less to ship, right? I can do more with a pound of hops, cryo hops, than I can with regular hops. I can do a lot more beer, which means I'm lowering my carbon footprint. I'm also cubing out better inside of a shipping container or a warehouse. All that's happening. So I'm decreasing all across the board. And we are, as brewers, we're requesting that from our suppliers. So that's grain, that's water, that's hops, and now we have yeast, which is the fourth and final component when it comes to beer. And we do the same thing. We want to make sure that the labs that are creating yeast for the brewing industry are doing it in a sustainable way. And if they can meet certain standards, their industry rewards them. Their financing rewards them. And ultimately, we end up getting a really good product, but at the same time, we are creating an impact on the supply chain that feeds into the brewing industry.
You know what? I want to say right here, Walter Station, Jim Erickson, we're saving the planet one show at a time with your sustainable beers. We're really happy to have you and Valerie here. And cheers to this amazing beer.
Oh, yeah. Well, it's so interesting that you're talking about this because we had a gentleman on that has a coffee farm in Hawaii, and he was saying something very, very similar, that they are trying to lower their carbon footprint. They've got electric tractors so they don't pollute the air and potentially taint the flavor of the beans.
Sure.
And it just seems like that the smaller farmers are going more and more like
he's inviting us to his farm.
That's right.
Yeah, New Year's.
Yeah, there are some farmers that are absolutely leading the way in this. Some hop growers that are absolutely leading the way, and some breweries that are doing the same thing.
Well,
in terms of sustainability.
It's baby steps.
We're a small fish in a really, really big pond.
But is it baby steps?
It is baby steps.
And that's what the show is about. Our show is about everybody making small little steps to go in that right direction with awareness, because it has to start somewhere. And if everyone's like, oh, you have to go full throttle, then sometimes you turn people off. And if you have all these people doing something small, that will make a difference.
It will, and it's.
Do you think so, Valerie?
No, absolutely. I mean, we see it every day because.
Tell us.
Well, at Scottsdale, we do kind of do that grassroots effort. One thing that we do is rebates. We try to get people to remove their turf, especially non-functional turf, because that's a huge.
Wait, teach me about
water
that. Teach me about that. I want to hear about that.
In Scottsdale, we use about 70% of our water outdoors. So that is 70% of the water that doesn't come back into our system that we can reuse in a different way, right? So it seeps into the ground.
The grass.
Yes. So, and a lot of people overwater because think of how many people are not from here.
Right.
So from the East Coast, from the Midwest, from the Pacific Northwest, they're used to water. They're used to a lot of water. And they're used to their plants, and they're used to their grass being green. So you come to Scottsdale, you come to Arizona, and you kind of have that same mindset, right? And so you come and you have this new house, and there's a little patch of grass. You're going to overwater. You don't know about desert landscaping. You don't know about checking your irrigation. So one thing that we do that has really been a great program for Scottsdale is we incentivize through rebates. So
how so?
So you can take out your grass, your non-functional turf that you don't really use except to maybe mow it. You know, that's a great place to start.
Spend
We
money on
always
landscapers.
say, like, let's start small. Let's start in those places that you don't ever use. They're just for aesthetic purposes. So if you take that out and you prove to us that you can then put in desert landscaping or some type of Arizona desert-friendly landscaping, we'll give you a rebate up to $2 per square foot.
Really?
Yeah.
What about if somebody puts in like a putting green, like fake grass? Is that not the same?
We will allow for up to a certain amount of artificial, but it has to also have some desert landscaping as well.
I love it.
So we want to minimize your water footprint.
So do you specifically come out and help people orchestrate this?
We have a whole conservation team that is amazing at it. They will help with the rebates. We do these efficiency checks. We have these irrigation specialists where you can do a free irrigation check at your residence. And they're amazing because these guys are so knowledgeable about every type of...
This is amazing. Like, people don't know this.
Every type of plant that is out there in Arizona. And they will teach you all about it. They'll open up your irrigation system. They'll turn it on. The one thing that I've been on a couple of these, I find amazing is really just even turning on your irrigation system, because most people don't ever think about it. It runs usually in the very morning, or maybe when you're at work, or some landscaper programs it for you and you don't know how to even work it. So they turn this on, and then all of a sudden you go over and you see like water, spilling out somewhere, and they're like, oh, I didn't know I had a leak. Or, oh wait, you mean that patch of dirt is wet and I have a leak under the ground. There's all these little things that really add up to big savings. So that's where our irrigation specialists can go out and really cultivate and
you guys send them out?
Yep, they're in our conservation team.
And is that something that's what does that cost?
Nothing. It's a free resource.
Really?
Yep.
Wow.
Just
And how do people find you?
For Scottsdale residents.
How do people find you to know this?
Yeah, you can go into scottsdaleaz.gov and just search up water, and we have all of our programs right there.
Do you know of if any of the other cities have sister programs?
They do. They have similar programs,
Good
but
question.
Each of the different cities does different things in different ways.
Sure.
We're all organic and we all do it in different ways. So yes, I think most of the Valley cities have some type of program that like what we do. Ours is definitely amplified, and we're really focusing on it just to...
And people don't understand we have to do something now because we are really in a drought. Yeah. And all of a sudden it's going to be like, okay, there's no water. We have to be proactive now, and I love what you're doing. It's really incredible, Valerie.
Yeah, and we want to just start, in the basic, the easy places, outside. That's the best way to start.
What about only washing your hair once a week?
Oh, that would work too, But please keep brushing your teeth twice a day.
Right.
But you can turn the water off while the toothpaste is in your mouth.
Yes, yep.
Well, and if you're really worried about the water situation, you should have some more Walter Station beer. That will help you get through that.
The Baja Girl Blonde. I'll pass it on to Colin. That's amazing.
I love your cans. think the
Thank
I
you.
love, you know
Thank
what? Their presentation is half of
There's
it.
a joke in there I'm
Like,
going to
it's
skip
so cool.
Oh.
just because you're on duty.
I love
Just-
your kids. Okay, sorry.
All right, phrasing. Are we still doing phrasing?
I love the artwork on your aluminum.
The artwork
There we
and,
go.
and like the size of the cans are nice too.
Okay.
Are you trying to get Valerie in trouble?
No, you're just having fun with us.
I didn't say that.
I'll take a little of that.
Colin, how much time do we have?
About 20 minutes.
How about for
Okay,
Colin?
perfect.
All right. Oh, yeah, for Colin.
Oh, yeah, for
Colin,
Colin,
hand me
sure.
your
Colin.
glass, please.
Thanks.
And what's it called? Here, we show the camera.
This beer is called Coffee and Cream. So
Stop,
it's essentially a cream ale.
stop
and
it,
it's
I love it.
coffee
and cream.
infused. Coffee infused.
Coffee infused.
Oh, coffee
oh,
and cream
my.
or coffee infused?
Coffee infused.
Oh,
love
I can
it.
definitely
love
smell it.
Ooh.
So it's a cream ale that starts out as a cream ale. The beer
Wow.
house. And
That's the
then
best beer I've
yeah.
ever tasted that tastes like
Wow.
coffee.
Oh, my goodness. My
Wow.
daughter would love this.
No, not my daughter. Me, I love it.
Well, I
love
like
this.
it too, but I'm saying she loves coffee and she likes beer. So I think this is going to be a winner for her.
Yeah, this is a big reaction beer. People,
Totally.
it really is. People get this, and if you're used to craft beer and you're used to getting coffee in a beer, it's almost always a stout
I was
or a
gonna
Can we
say,
porter.
isn't it normally a stout?
Yes.
Yeah, yeah.
Can we
exactly.
sneak some for her?
There's also,
Yeah, later,
it
later.
seems to be
later.
more bitter, where this has almost no bitterness in it
Wow.
that I can
Right.
taste.
Right, and that is because we never heat the coffee.
Say again?
We cold steep it.
You cold.
So we
That's
never
smart.
release anything out of the bean other than the flavor that I'm looking for.
So it makes it more sweet.
Mm.
Because I
Right.
taste almost like a little sweetness.
I think that's the
I
creaminess,
taste-
right?
Yeah.
Mm.
Is that,
Like
is-
The
how
creamy, you're getting creaminess from the malt, from the
Okay.
malt bill, the different types of malts we used in this. So that's building the base beer,
okay.
and then the flavor that you're getting, the aroma is absolutely you're getting from the bean, and the flavor that you're getting is coming from the bean as well. There's hops in this beer, as there's hops in almost every beer.
Right.
I taste coffee
but you're not
cheesecake.
really getting any hop character out of this beer.
Coffee
The coffee totally covers it.
Do you taste it, Colin? I taste a coffee
No,
cheesecake.
I absolutely get the
Do you-
it's the malt, the creaminess
Yeah,
that
the-
malt
yeah.
gives it more of that ricotta cheese
coffee cake.
kind of, yeah.
Coffee cheesecake.
It's
Do
good.
you taste it?
I do.
It's good.
I do.
I seriously do.
I get a ton of flavors in this beer.
You could sell
And
this to
not
the
just
Cheesecake
coffee.
Factory. You could. I taste
You
coffee
could probably
cheesecake.
sell it to any place that likes craft beer.
Well-
Cheesecake Factory, maybe not.
You know, when I first made this beer years ago in my garage, right?
Mm, wow.
I always told everybody, it's like we have to have a beer for breakfast, right? I mean,
Oh, no.
So
This
you
is
gotta
used
be-
to make this in your garage.
Oh yeah.
Stop
So
it.
hold on,
Oh, yeah.
hold on. This is a
Wow.
new part of the story. So you
How did this start?
did
How did this
all
start?
of these?
Come on.
Did you made all these beers, or just a few of them, and then you've
Colin's
been able to
impressed. I see that
experiment
big
now
smile.
that you?
Look at Colin. He's smiling.
Yeah, if you made this beer in your garage, color me impressed.
I've made, the one that we're drinking, certainly Baja Girl Blonde was the very first beer I ever made.
Where's the can? We gotta find the
It's
can.
around here
It's-
somewhere.
Oh.
Right here.
There it is.
Where's Jim's cans again?
I want to save these cans.
And so
Yes, please.
yeah, I made Turnout, which is a West Coast IPA. Just Be Nice. Which
Just
is
be nice. Stop it.
That's the
Have
name
you
of the
tried that
beer.
yet?
It's the name of the beer. It's coming up.
Mhm.
Okay, it's coming.
And that's an American Amber style ale, and that was first.
Can we
started in my
take the
garage as well.
Just be nice to Chet?
What? No.
We love him.
So, what? I mean, you're a beer lover for most of your life. What told you? You know what? I'm going to start making beer. And then what? How did it become a business passion?
And what'd you do before this beer business?
We have so many questions.
Oh, you do have a lot of questions.
Boom, boom, boom.
Coming all over the place.
And Valerie?
Everywhere.
Write
It's
down your
everywhere.
bio.
How long
That's
did
right.
you? How
Tell
long
us-
did you
tell
guys?
us a story.
How long have you known him?
Valerie and I have only known each other for months.
Yeah, a couple 6
Just 3
months.
months.
Wow.
Yeah.
What a great collaboration.
Because you just started. What year did you start with Scottsdale Water?
Almost 2 years.
Almost
ago.
2 years. Okay.
Yeah,
And
so
then,
we didn't do the One Water Brewing Showcase for a couple years because of COVID. So
Okay.
yeah, so we only did it once back in 2019. Then it was
Gotcha.
COVID. So this year we were back.
Wonderful.
Nice.
yeah. So I started brewing in my garage because I just love beer.
Mhm.
And
How long? Like 5 years ago, 10 years ago,
12 years ago,
Okay.
roughly
Okay.
10 or 12 years ago, I started brewing
more
in my
than a
garage.
decade.
I had always had this fascination with craft style beer. I was always looking for something a little bit different. And most people that are like really craft enthusiasts, we sit around the table, we really do. We get together, we do these things, and we talk about craft beer. And we're like, oh, one of the questions that pops up, what was the first craft beer you ever had, right? And you're like, geez, I don't know. I can remember mine almost down to the day. And I was living in eastern Pennsylvania, and I was drinking a beer called Pete's Wicked Ale, which I don't even think is produced anymore. And it was a craft beer that I had never had before. We were in a restaurant, and they served it to me. Oh, I don't know who I was with. Somebody.
Someone.
Some other beer drinker.
He loved it so much he can't even remember who they were.
Someone. It was
and yeah, so that was sort of my intro into that, and then they came up with a street Pete's Wicked Strawberry Blonde, and they started putting these flavors into beers, and it just kind of blew my mind. I'm looking at this stuff, and I'm like, this is amazing, because growing up, we drank macro beers, we drank Bud Light, Miller Lite, Coors Light, all these big giant beers, and that's what we were used to consuming. And in fact, when you were much younger, when you couldn't afford anything, you drank.
Oh, Busch Beer,
there you go.
Pabst Blue Ribbon,
Old Milwaukee, all the
Yingling,
all the classics.
Those are the ones that made me feel like garbage. But these, I mean, craft beers don't tend to have that. Stop punching me.
You just named Yingling. You must be from the East Coast.
Oh my gosh.
I'm from here. I mean, I grew up in the Midwest. I'm from here, but I've traveled quite a bit around. And my wife is a beer connoisseur.
Oh, Sherry's amazing. We're gonna have dinner after the show.
Yeah, she knows her beer.
Oh, she does.
Yes.
She's amazing.
We can get a picture. All right.
Oh, we're doing a pic.
All right, we're doing a pic.
In the green room. We're
in the
here.
green room, saving the planet one picture at a time.
In the
if
green
Colin
room,
can
it's
take
a
the
video.
damn picture.
Are we doing video? No, we're doing video.
What are you doing? Calculus over there?
No, we're doing it live. We're doing it live.
I'll take a picture
I know.
first.
I'm joking with him.
Oh, okay. Not if he's
Let's
filming.
see.
He's an
Okay.
audio engineer, not a video.
There you go.
That's right. That's right. All right, here we go.
Picture.
One picture.
Oh, hold on, that was a bad one.
Cheers.
1, 2.
Cheers as we've got the audio going.
1, 2, 3. Perfect.
All
Back
right,
to the
that
video.
wasn't
and
that
don't
exciting.
Forget us. Forget us. Just film us and don't worry. So this is amazing. Like, I think my favorite one so far is the Baja Girl, but also this coffee cream.
Coffee and cream.
I can tell you this coffee and cream, like, again, I am not a beer drinker. I can drink this for sure.
This is like...
It's not...
Is there caffeine in it?
Trace amounts.
Yeah, very
Since
little.
it's never been boiled, it's cold steep. There's really maybe a trace amount of
good.
caffeine. So.
But the flavor, it doesn't have that beer aftertaste, doesn't have a coffee aftertaste. It just has a nice, light, creamy... with
none of the
like,
astringency that comes with a boiled coffee.
Yes, yes.
But if you want to get that coffee taste and a little bit of caffeine, this is what way to go.
I could actually make a different beer, boil it, and add the coffee to the beer, the actual liquid coffee.
Mm-hmm.
And the beans would never touch the coffee. In this case, how I do it is we actually steep the beans in the completed beer. So we actually fill a muslin bag,
Okay.
Really?
right?
Like a big tea bag.
Yeah, that's exactly it. That's perfect. It's a big tea bag, and we shove it in the fermenter, and we hook it up so it's suspended and it's just floating there.
And
Is this one?
What gave you that idea?
Coffee and cream?
Because that's what you did in your garage.
I
You
know.
took
I did it in
a
my
muslin
garage.
bag and...
It was so much easier, by the way, to do it in the garage than it is.
I'm sure.
And you got this one too.
But I was making a beer and I wanted to do a coffee beer, and I was tired of stouts that were coffee.
Yeah.
Porters that were coffee. Mm-hmm. And I thought, why can't we have a clear beer or a
Yes.
little more lighter beer with a little more balance instead of something that's that dark and
This
roasty.
is very balanced, like I said, and harmonious. I just want to drink the whole beer.
This is good.
Sometimes you get sick of if it's too strong. This is such a perfect balance, like you said.
This is interesting. So the same thing. I love chocolate, but if you have chocolate in a beer, it's usually some kind of chocolate porter, a stout. And what we do now is we do a French roast instead of coffee beans. We do cocoa beans.
But can we have just be nice now?
This would be.
I should make it a little shorter.
I might steal this idea, but I think making beer with cacao beans might be fun.
So our next beer we're going to try
like you're talking about
is just be nice.
What's that?
Can we try this one?
She obviously cannot wait
We're gonna try.
To try
It's
Just
in
Be
honor
Nice.
of somebody.
Let's have a glass.
And you
Yes.
know who I'm talking
I
about.
know exactly what you're talking
Just be
Ooh,
nice.
that was really good.
about.
That sounds so good. I
Oh,
hope
Oh
you
yeah,
got
that
in the
that came perfectly.
mic.
Perfectly.
So, has Valerie tried all these
All right,
beers?
so this
No,
is darker.
This is an American amber.
American
You have a
amber.
cup that you want me to use?
Yes, sir. This one right here.
Wow,
You're-
that's amazing. This might be my favorite. I loved it. Just be nice.
So my wife's favorite is a Scottish ale. So would this be close to a Scottish
You know,
ale?
very similar.
Okay.
Very,
Yes.
very similar. They use
Oh.
they use similar
wow.
grains,
Mhm.
similar malts, similar hops. It's very similar to that.
Oh wow.
Love it.
It is very similar to that.
Mm.
So this one you're going to get a much more complex grain bill. So this is not a smash beer. This is not a single malt and single hop.
Mhm.
This is a beer that's got about 4 different grains in it. So 4 different types of malts. And that first malt that I described earlier, where all they did was they got it to sprout and then they dried it out, and that's what they sold to the brewers. That's one type of malt. What you can do after you have that, what you can do is you can do all sorts of things. You can put those malts into a roaster, and you can roast it so that the grains themselves actually start to turn color, which is where you get color in your beer instead of all these light colors that we were having earlier.
I like the darkness.
So what makes it more of an amber then versus just a
It's
darker
the malt.
beer?
It's all the malts.
All the malts.
All
Okay.
the malts.
Mm.
So a variety of different types of malts is how we get to that amber sort of color.
And then a
it's-
certain percentage of them are roasted in order to
Correct.
Why don't you start a restaurant called Just Be Nice?
get...
Well, funny you should mention Just Be Nice, because it was actually named after my partner, Kirk's wife. And she, I noticed one day, her name's Mary. And Mary was hanging around, the brewery, the club, or whatever, I forget. And she wasn't drinking beer. And I asked her one day, why aren't you drinking beer? It's all mine beer.
Right. This is what I
And
do.
what's going on here? And
Oh.
she had explained to me that she didn't really like the all the types of beers, the hops and things like that. That wasn't her thing. So I asked her what type of beer she liked. She gave me a couple of examples, and I said, no problem. I went to work and I came up with Just Be Nice. I didn't come up with a name. I came up with a beer, which is an American amber, and
But can I
I
tell
brought
you,
it to her.
people like the names, and that's why like Pillsbury Wine, Pillsbury Winery, he does so well because his wines are excellent. He's won awards, but he has really funny names.
Yeah, you guys
Like
are
One Night
fantastic.
Stand.
Right. And I did not like this name.
I
Right
love
off the
this
bat.
name.
Really?
So I took
Oh,
the
I
beer.
love it.
I took the beer to Mary and I simply said, "Hey, would you taste this? I made this for you. What do you think?" And she tried it and she loved it. She just loved it. And she's super sweet, super nice. Even if she didn't like it, I think she would have said, "Oh, I love this beer," right? But she liked it and she was drinking it. And I told her, I said, "Look, this was made for you. Why don't you go ahead and name it? We don't have a name for this yet, so we needed to come up with a name." And
I
she
love
said,
it.
"She said, okay, no problem." And she took it really serious. And she said, "Can you give me some time?" And I said, "Of course." So she took about a week. And she came back and she was very serious about it. And she said, "I came up with a name for the beer." And I said, "Well, that's great. What is it?" And she said, "It's called Just Be Nice." And I said,
I hate it. I hate it. That's the worst thing. Oh shoot! I have to be nice.
I love it.
well, I'm not a very nice person. I don't ever thought I was, so it doesn't work
Yes,
with me.
you
right?
are.
But,
Yeah,
But-
you're such a horrible human. I can
well,
just
Mary,
tell.
Right?
Mary is sweetness personified.
Okay, so she makes you look bad.
Yeah, indeed. And so,
Is she your
I said
girlfriend?
to her, "What's that?"
Is she the girlfriend?
She is my partner, Kirk. Kirk and Mary Strawn, they own Walter Productions.
Right.
That has
It's the wife of his friend, so calling her his girlfriend probably won't go over well.
yeah. So she came up with a name, and I said, "I don't know if that's a really commercially acceptable name for a beer. I'm not sure that it'll work."
Oh,
And
it's
she
great.
was standing here, and she started to do this, and I'm like, "What is she doing?"
Rolling up
And
her
she's
sleeves.
rolling up her sleeve, and all of a sudden she goes like this, and she has tattooed on her arm, "Just be nice."
Oh.
And I looked at her like,
okay.
"So we got the name of the beer. We definitely have the name of the beer now, don't we?"
Oh, how cute.
And so
That's
she had actually
great. Just
I
didn't say a
love
word.
it.
Just
I love it.
She didn't
right
say a
here.
word. Just cool as a cucumber, rolled up the sleeve, and I'm like, all right,
Okay.
game on.
Game on. And
I really think
It
there's no
is-
better name for a beer.
isn't it great to be
Or any
wrong?
business.
I've absolutely warmed up to it. I used
Warmed
to,
up too?
I used
There's
to-
nothing better. Watch, it'll be your bestseller.
It's a very good seller,
Mhm.
Morris. It's a very good seller.
Yeah.
You know, people like American Ambers. It's a beer that's not really hoppy, but when you drink it, you feel like you're drinking craft beer because it's not see-through.
Like if you're in a
Right.
fight with somebody or somebody's mad at you, you can bring them a case of just be
There
nice.
you go. Yeah, a little
You
peace
know?
offering. Yeah.
Yeah,
I like
it's
that.
the olive branch. Yes.
I like
Just
that.
be
It's kind of
nice.
it's a little
Cheers.
passive aggressive beer humor.
Right.
Right.
No, I'm being serious. I that's my favorite because we're here saving the planet.
One beer at a time.
One beer
Well, then
at a
we'll,
time.
we'll squeeze one more in.
Not one
If
more,
we have
all of
time.
them.
How are we doing?
That's what
Five.
we're
And we got
gonna
5 minutes for one more beer.
I don't know whose that one is, but
That's the this is the spit cup.
Oh, no, I didn't have one of those. I was drinking all mine.
So am I, but
I am
King is
too.
a lady, so.
that's he knows what to say.
Next on is Hazing, Arizona, of course, named after
After
the movie Raising Arizona.
oh, sorry, I was slow on the
it.
uptake. I've had some beer.
I love it. I love it.
Anyway, so
Hazing. Oh, is that kind of a Nicolas Cage-esque character on the front?
it is. It's almost him. It's not quite.
Well, yeah, no, okay, it has to be at least 25%, not him.
Right.
Well, every beer you have is so unique and so different. This one I taste lime and
Falling behind.
citrus and
I got you.
flowers.
So this one is going to be very different from the others because now we're getting into a really hoppy beer.
It's light and citrus.
So this is going to have a ton of citrus to it.
Mm.
Oh, that's right. That's right up there. Sorry.
Wow.
And
Hey, Colin, did
So-
you have Colin? Oh,
You got some.
so this is the latest
Colin.
craze in terms of beers. About 5 years ago, they came up with the idea that an IPA didn't have to be clear, like a West Coast bitter IPA. And instead, these guys up in New England created a new style. And so they called it a New England IPA.
Mhm.
And everybody started
Cheers.
doing it. It just went
Cheers.
like wildfire.
Cheers.
And it wasn't necessarily a style I like to brew or even drink, rather.
Mhm.
But I got convinced by everybody on the team
To
that
try it.
we absolutely have to make this type of beer
Mhm.
because we're getting so many requests for it.
Right.
So I went ahead and made it. And we
And
make
who
it now. And
named
now it
this?
is our best-selling beer by
I agree.
far.
I agree.
Yeah, and it's
amazing.
It's different, I think, than that New England. For me, it's kind of like it reminds me of Hogarten, which is one of my favorite
To me, it's
beers.
spicy.
Um,
I taste spice.
It's a little spice.
but it's not as heavy.
Mm.
Like I can drink one Hogarten and I'm done. I could probably fit 2 of these in there. It's a little bit, I don't know.
I can
This
drink
beer
more.
is our bestseller. It accounts for almost 50% of everything we do at the
Can I
brewery.
tell you what?
Are you serious?
Can I tell you what I
Dead serious.
taste? I taste
It's
balance, but beauty. I taste Arizona. I taste spice. I taste jalapeno. I taste not too heavy. I taste we can keep drinking. I do. And I taste I want to dance. And
That would be a good name for a band or a beer. Just keep drinking.
Just keep drinking.
I'll race you.
Cheers. Cheers. Okay,
I might
cheers.
steal that.
You're more than welcome to. That's pretty funny.
Right? It's so good.
We like
So-
to come up with
so
You guys are
funny
talking
band
about
names.
names and coming up with beer names.
These names are
It
so
is
good.
so hard to do anymore. It
Oh,
is
no,
so
no.
difficult
Well,
to do.
call me. I can
And
do it.
every
I
time
can
we
do it.
come up with a new beer, we
No,
have to come
no.
up with a new name.
Mhm.
And
It's not. Why do you think it's hard?
because it is. Because most of them are taken.
We
Yeah.
would,
Every
we
time you
would,
come up with something
we
really
would love
creative,
to be
Call-
on your
okay,
brainstorming team.
We'll do
Oh,
a show
Because
where
we will
name
throw
it.
some stuff at you that'll curl your hair.
Right,
We-
Colin? Can we figure it out?
we did this one. This Hazing Arizona was sort of named by committee.
Mm-hmm.
We were coming up with trying to make
It's
it
the best name.
It's a great name.
because New England style
Do you know why it's
beers
so
are
good?
also called hazy
But
IPAs.
no. Do you know what's
right.
so great?
Yeah, yeah.
Because you get people that come to Arizona, either people that love Arizona, live in Arizona, or people that are visiting Arizona and they want something Arizona.
And some of them
I
even
love
like
it.
Nick Cage. So
Right?
And
We're
I
waiting.
love him.
We're
So
waiting.
It's a win-win love.
An international list of beer names that you can't use?
well, it's
Yes, it's
How
the
many minutes do we have?
USPTO.
yes, and you don't
Okay,
want to
so
you
in
don't
2
want to take
minutes-
somebody else's
You
name.
wanna
It's
get
kind
too
of like
deep into that.
when
Yeah.
you're
In
songwriting.
the last 2
same thing.
minutes,
Oh, 2 minutes.
last 2 minutes, let's.
How do people get a hold of Walter
Yes.
Station Brewery
Yes.
if they want to come and hang out?
While I'm
Jim.
drinking. WalterStation.beer is the
Mhm.
easiest way to get to our website, of course, or Facebook page. You can find us Instagram, Walter Station AZ, and you can find us on all the social media platforms as well as our website. We're located just on the north side of the airport on the light rail line.
Wonderful. And
Valerie,
if people want to know more about what
Schneider.
you do and what the city of Scottsdale is doing, tell us.
ScottsdaleAZ.gov. Search up water. And that's where you'll find all your rebates and your conservation.
And we'd love
efforts
to do a
as
whole
well.
show, another show with both of you in the future about how we can conserve our water.
Well, at
How we can be
minimum,
better.
we
And
should go
really-
do a tour and take some video and then post it on Facebook.
And learn and then do another
yes,
show. So we're more
absolutely.
knowledgeable.
You'll love the tour. You
Valerie.
will.
Well, I mean, water is becoming more and
Scarce.
more and more scarce. It's becoming more and more important. So thank you, Valerie. Thank you, Jim.
Thank
Appreciate
you
what
guys
you
so
do.
much. We love that your
And
beer is
thank you
sustainable.
for turning
and thank you for
wastewater
saving our
into, I don't know, ambrosia.
And boom, boom, boom. Thank you so much. Saving the
right.
planet.
One
One
beer
show
at a time. I mean, show.
So everybody check out or don't,
Oh,
yeah.
in the
please
green
check
room
out
dot green.
In the green.green, Facebook,
Yes is
Instagram,
morefun.com.
morefun.com.
Yes.
And how do they hire you as a band?
Junktheband.com.
Junk the
We
band.
never got the guitar.
Yeah.
Oh, I never got the guitar.
End with a song. He's gonna end with a song. We have
Oh, no.
we have another minute.
Oh no, we're
No,
no.
we have another minute.
No,
yeah.
No,
Do we have a
no,
minute?
I'm done.
We have a minute. That's
We have a minute.
I'm not doing it.